Hello and welcome back. This is Manish Jain. As you saw from the intro clip, this is all about the new 911, internally known as the 992. This is the 8th generation of the 911, and they launched it at the Los Angeles Auto Show, which is kind of surprising because the previous launches, the 5th generation, the 6th generation, and the 7th generation all took place at either the Paris Auto Show or the Frankfurt Auto Show. But apparently they wanted to launch it in Los Angeles, and it wasn't really clear until a day later when they announced that the 911's biggest market is the US, and it made sense that they launch it at the Los Angeles Motor Show. So as you saw from the clip, the car looks quite amazing, and we'll get into a little bit more about the car. We'll compare the new 992 versus the previous generations. But before we get into that, a little bit of humor. I wanted to show the clip of the CEO of Porsche introducing the new 992. And I'll show the clip and then I'll give you my thoughts on it. It was pretty hilarious what people had to say on Twitter about it. But let's first play the clip, and then we'll talk about it after the clip. And I'm only going to show probably the first 10-15 seconds of that clip.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the chairman of the executive board, Oliver Blume.
Creating something timeless. So, very Porsche's words. Ladies and gentlemen, what does it mean? For us at Porsche, it means sticking to principles.
So as I mentioned, that live event happened not only to the audience in LA, but it was live streamed across various social media platforms. And some of the comments about that introduction were pretty tough on the CEO. The funniest one is German humor is no laughing matter, and that is the truth. I mean, the CEO's taken something that's so amazing, this car is so filled with passion, and he's kind of made it really mundane sounding and something that only an accountant could love with the numbers. But anyways, we'll get into the car now. Let's talk about the new 992. Let's take a look at the front and the back and kind of show the differences of it. So here I've got a shot of the new 992 in front of us, and as you can see, it looks very similar to the previous generations, the 991, the 997, the 996 to some extent. The big oval headlamps in the front. The real differences will come when I show you the back, and that's really where it's quite noticeable. And I think that's where a lot of people are now kind of saying, oh my God, they've really changed the back. They've ruined the 911. And I'll tell you, every generation of 911 that comes out, they say the same damn thing. It's so funny. People just get so pissed when they do any sort of changes. I remember when the 6th generation came out, the 7th generation, and they also the same thing. Oh my God, you've completely ruined the whole 911. And I can tell you the sales stats show differently. Every year the 911 has had more sales than the previous years. So they're doing something right. And I think they definitely are gaining a lot of momentum with the car. They're selling more and more every year because people just love the fact that it's the same basic iconic shape for the last 50 plus years. And as you can see, like I said, the back is different. You've got a lot of black around the tailpipes. You've got that red line, that LED strip across, which used to be known mainly for the Carrera 4S, and now it's also on the Panamera. So now I think it's the thing that's going to be across all of the Porsches is this thin LED red strip. I love it, and I'm sure the minute I see it in the car, I'm going to love it even more when I see it on the road. It's a great looking car from what I can tell and the videos that they've shown. But like I said, you won't really know till you actually see it in person. And some of the biggest changes have actually happened on the inside. Now, I'm not even going to show the inside pictures because it's really tough to kind of get a sense of it. But once, we get into the 992 and take a look at it whenever it gets delivered, they're saying these cars may not come to Europe for the next 6 to 7 months, which means in India, we're probably not going to see this probably for another year. So I wouldn't be surprised this time next year we'll probably see the first deliveries of the 992 here in India. So as I mentioned, I was kind of surprised that they launched the 911 at the LA Auto Show. But when you look at this graphic that I'm showing now, it's pretty apparent why. The 911's biggest market is the US, and I'd say in particular, even that You bring it down, the Los Angeles market probably is the single biggest market for the 911. I used to live there many years ago in Los Angeles, and really they would be everywhere. You'd turn left or right at every traffic signal, you'd see 911s galore. And in fact, a little bit of history, the first single standing store for Porsche was actually in Hermosa Beach called Vashik Polik, and that's the first dealership in all of the US that had its own location for Porsches. And so that really is, I think, ground zero for Porsche 911s is Southern California. So it kind of makes sense. So if you look at the stats, it said that they sold close to 9,000 911s in the US last year. So it kind of makes sense that they would have launched it in at the LA Auto Show. And they also have an experience center in Los Angeles, which is a little racetrack. They do deliveries of the car there. They also have, you can also get with an instructor and learn how to drive these cars much better. So not surprising, I guess, when you look at all the stats for why they launched the 911 in the LA Auto Show. And if you look at the other cars that they've sell, they sell the Macan, the Panamera, the Cayenne, the 718 Boxster Cayman. And not surprisingly, the number one selling car in their entire fleet is the Macan. All right, so now I'm going to take you through a little bit of the history of the 911. We're going to focus on the 5th, 6th, and 7th generation of the 911. So what I'm showing you right now are pictures of the 5th generation, known internally as the 996. And like I mentioned, is really the way Porsche does their naming convention is they've got an internal, what they call, a 996, 997, 991, or 992. But within the 996, let's say they've got what they call a first generation and a second generation, almost like a version 1 and version 2. So what we're seeing on the screen are the 996.1. So that's the first generation of the 996. And this was a car that was sold between 1999 and 2001. It was their all new body, and it was the beginning of the water cooled engines. So previously all the cars were air cooled, and I can tell you that's when all hell broke loose. People said, oh my God, that's the end of the 911s. They've gone from air cooled to water cooled, and that's it. The brand is done. The 911 is over. And that's not the case. In fact, the numbers have only grown since that generation. And like I said, every generation will have that. So it's almost hilarious to hear. You get on Twitter, you get on Facebook, you get on YouTube today, and people say, oh my God, the 992 looks like crap. It looks like a Panamera. What have they done? And I can tell you the sales numbers will show very differently, because the reality is it's a great car. Next, what I'm going to show you are the 996.2. That's the second generation of the 996. This ran from 2002 to 2004. And subtle differences. The real big difference was in the engine got a bump. So it went from 296 horsepower to 320 horsepower. But if you look at the images, it's pretty tough to tell the difference between a first generation and a second generation 996. But there are some subtleties, and I'll kind of show the two side by side so you can kind of compare the two and take a look at it. And you'll really see that there is some subtle changes, but honestly, only a hardcore 911 enthusiast would be able to tell the difference between the first generation 996 and then the second generation 996. All right, so moving along, we're moving to the 6th generation, which is known as the 997. So the first generation of the 997, called the 997.1, ran from 2005 to 2008. And that had an all-new body style, and the horsepower got bumped up to 325 horsepower, so not much of a change. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to put all four pictures on the screen so you can take a look at it. So the top, that is the 997.1, and then the bottom ones are the 997.2s, so you can see the difference. And so the 5th generation was launched at the Frankfurt Auto Show, both the first gen and the second gen. And the 6th generation was launched at the Paris Auto Show, both the first gen and the second gen. And as you can see here, the bottom is the 997.2. It's got upgraded engine. It went to 345 horsepower, the base engine. This is also the beginning of the PDK era. And there was some upheaval, of course, 6th generation, but not as much as going from air-cooled to water-cooled. And that's really the differences between the 6th generation, the 997.1, and the 997.2. All right, so that brings us to the 7th generation, known as the 991. So both the 991.1 and the 991.2 were both released at the Frankfurt Auto Show. So in 2011 is when they launched the new 991. And that had an all-new design compared to the previous generation, and the engine bump went up to 350 horsepower for the 3.4 liter. And all, of course, as you know, all 911s are a flat six. So that's kind of their thing is, a flat six engine. And then we moved to, so the top pictures are the 991 first gen, and then the bottom pictures are the 991 second gen. And as you can see, slight differences again between the first gen and the second generation. But the real big change that happened in the second generation of the 991 is turbocharging. So they were no longer naturally aspirated engines. They moved to turbocharging. So again, everybody went up in arms like, oh my God, that's an end of an era. How could you do this? How could 911s, go down the path of, turbocharging? And they're all turbocharged. Sales numbers have increased. And, nothing is, really changed from that perspective of, people saying that's the end of the 911 reign. And it still continues. So that's really the big changes in the 7th generation. And so that's really it. That's a kind of a history of the 911 from the 5th generation to the 6th to the 7th. And of course, here we are today with the new 2020 is what they're calling it. Those 911s are going to roll out very, very shortly. Not really shortly. It's probably a year from now. So they're anticipating European deliveries probably sometime in the summer. My guess is probably August is what they're targeting for, which means we may not see any of those 911s hit the Indian shores probably till the end of the year. So I'm saying a year from now, we'll probably see our first 911s, which as I've been saying through this whole, vlog is internally known as the 992. And that's really it. Hope you like it. I think I'm going to do another vlog, and I'm actually going to go through the configurator. This was kind of getting up in a little bit long, so I said let me just kind of cut this in two parts. One is the history of the 911, and then the second one is I can honestly spend hours and hours with that configurator. But that's kind of where we are with this. Anyways, thanks so much. Take care, and hope to see you soon.